welcome back to the 49ers First and 10 podcast presented by Cisco. The 2025 NFL Draft just wrapped up. The 49ers used all 11 picks, and we're recording live from Levi Stadium in the SAP Performance Facility. I'm your host, Brianna McDonald. I'm with 49ers team reporter Lindsey and special guest Jesus Zarate. How do you guys feel about this year's draft class?
Well, I think we were wrong. We thought that we would trade up, trade down. I remember all these different predictions we had, but it turned out to be a draft where the 49ers were able to get a lot of players that filled those positions of need. So I think overall, a very successful draft class for San Francisco.
Yeah, Jesus, first initial thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. I actually like the draft, how it went down. Obviously, like Lindsey was saying, we were talking about trading down.
And hypotheticals.
And at the end, they didn't do that. They kept all the original picks. But even Kyle Shanahan and Lynch say it at the press conference on the last day, on the third day, that they needed all of these picks to fill in for all the holes the team had.
Exactly. So on Friday, Mykel Williams, the 49ers' first pick in this year's class, came into 49ers HQ. What did you guys learn from him? What did you guys have to see from him in his first day on campus?
I think just very enthusiastic to be here, to meet all the coaching staff. A few of the players that are here, obviously, for the voluntary off-season workout programs. Overall, such a positive look on coming to the Bay Area. He said he's familiar more so with Southern California because he does some of his off-season training there. I think some of the fun tidbits we picked up from the one-on-one, his mom was an Olympic volleyball player.
Oh, cool.
And then he said both of his parents played collegiate sports, so that athletic DNA, these are family traits. So very excited to learn about him, and that it was actually wrestling, WWE in particular, that was the reason he even started playing football. So I really appreciated that.
Awesome. Jesus, you also had a sit-down with him. You got to talk to him. What did you learn about him?
He's a really nice guy. Yeah, I asked him a couple of questions. He's very excited about meeting Nick Bosa. He even said it. He told me that, and also during his press conference, he said, I want to learn everything. I want to know how he thinks. That's what he mentioned. And I also asked him about Trent Williams, because obviously Trent Williams on the other side of the ball, can give him a few tips, because obviously Trent Williams has faced over his successful career, has faced a great pass rusher, so he can give him a few tips. And he said, oh yeah, definitely, I want to meet Trent too. So yeah, pretty nice guy.
Absolutely. The best in the game to learn from. And that was just the beginning today, too. Moving on, there was 3 more picks in the draft. Defensive lineman Alfred Collins out of Texas, defensive lineman Nick Martin out of Oklahoma State, and cornerback Upton Stout from Western Kentucky. Lindsey, you also got to talk to them right after they got picked. What was their excitement like getting picked in day 2 of the draft, and what did you learn from those 3?
I think from a lot of the prospects turned draft picks now, there was at least some contact with the 49ers throughout the pre-draft process. So perhaps they didn't know they were getting drafted by the Niners, but they have had positive conversations, all of them very excited across the board. I really, really enjoyed my conversation with Alfred Collins because I asked him, what do the faithful need to know about you? And he said very, very short and sweet, the run will be stopped. And I know that is definitely going to bring a smile to both head coach Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch's faces, because that is really the number one reason that he was brought here.
Yeah, it seems like the theme of the draft at the very beginning was defense, all defense. Robert Saleh was definitely cooking in that war room. What did you learn from those 3 on day 2?
Yeah, definitely. They wanted to fill in some holes in the defensive line, so they did that with Alfred Collins, obviously Mykel Williams on the edge, and then C.J. West. So yeah, definitely really good defensive lineman and very big. So the way I'm looking at it is that they're constructing like the team in the front. They want to be big, strong, fast, physical, sort of like they were in 2019. Obviously, when Robert Saleh was here, remember we had DeForest Buckner, Arik Armstead, big guys on the trenches, and obviously Bosa and D4 on the outside. So I think that they want to kind of have that type of defense now with the characteristics of these players, because in the back end, you look at the linebackers they chose, and Nick Martin, then at the safeties, they're short but really quick. They're not like the biggest guys, but I remember like they mentioned that they want to focus like on speed to stop the run, and those guys that they chose like a Nick Martin. He reminds me like a Malik Mustafa. He just goes like a missile and makes the tackle. So I really like the way that they're constructing the defense.
Yeah, the 49ers brass has done this before, and they know that it works. Now, on day 3, they got busy. There was quite a few picks. I'll run down the list right now. Defensive lineman C.J. West, wide receiver Jordan Watkins, running back Jordan James, safety Marquise Siegel, quarterback Curtis Rourke, offensive lineman Connor Colby, wide receiver Junior Bergen. And so I want to know what stands out to you about this day 3 haul. Definitely a lot of guys on the list, but what stands out to you?
I think, like you said, long list. I wanted to call out that C.J. West in particular, when you talk about him joining forces with Alfred Collins, you've got 300-pound plus guys up in the middle who are natural bred run stoppers, right? And it's exactly what Jesus said. You want to really bolster that defensive line. I think you see the Robert Saleh touch on the draft picks, especially with those first 5 picks of the draft all being defensive players. I think also, let's talk Marquise Siegel. I think one of the best things he said is that he can play all 4 positions in the secondary. He said versatility. And then also, like you mentioned, Jesus speed are things that he really felt were important to highlight. And he was just said, I'm ready to do whatever this team needs me to do.
Yeah, Jesus, a lot of names to study, but what stood out to you on day 3?
Yeah, definitely. A guy like Siegel, with like Lindsey was saying, with his versatility is going to be very important, because remember, Upton Stout, he's also like a nickel corner. So Siegel gives you that versatility. You want to play him at safety, or in case you need him at nickel. So that means like there's a higher chance now for Diamador Lenore to just focus totally on being an outside corner, because we know he can
He'll
do
do whatever
both things.
you need to.
Yeah, he's the best at doing both,
Yeah.
nickel and outside. But I think if either like maybe Siegel or Stout take that nickel cornerback role, that's going to benefit Lenore and the whole 49ers defense in general.
Yeah, and the faithful felt it this year. The theme of the draft was definitely defense, but Lindsey, there were also 4 offensive players chosen. What stood out to you about those 4 on the other side of the ball?
I actually want to call out the final pick for the 49ers, which came at the back end of that 7th round. And Jesus and I were talking about it, but it was wide receiver Junior Bergen out of Montana. He's a Billings native. And while he is a wide receiver and we're looking forward to seeing him in that room, he really had that edge because of special teams. And John Lynch said it to me in the one-on-one we had to wrap up day 3, is that the special teams coaches were very much heard on this pick. He has a lot of experience at punt returner. I believe in college, return 8 punts for a touchdown. They're looking to use that special teams experience, especially with the new NFL rule, with the touchback now going back to the 35-yard line. So I think that skill set's going to be really important.
Yeah, Jesus, any standouts from the offensive side of the ball in this year's draft?
Yeah, I also like a lot Jordan Watkins, the wide receiver. He's really fast, so I think you can take advantage of that. For example, the 49ers needed last season, they've been needing like a wide receiver that is able to separate, and I think Watkins will be able to create that separation, and also like on deep routes, on deeper throws, he can present like a threat. Obviously, we know how good Brad Purdy is at identifying whoever is fast. He processes information really fast. And if you see that Watkins is quick and is able to separate quickly, that can be a huge advantage for the 49ers offense. And especially because we don't know like when Brandon Ayuk is going to be back and healthy. Even Kyle Shanahan said that at his press conference. So I think Watkins is a huge addition to the team.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Lindsey, you had the chance to talk to John Lynch after every single day of this year's draft. You just finished talking to him today on day 3. What did he have to say about his final thoughts on this year's class? How proud is he of his picks? And really, what insight did he give you from the last day?
With the 11 picks, there were definitely a lot of positions of need, and they were able to address those almost in the way that they had envisioned really early with those 4 picks. But all of the picks were necessary, right? We were definitely predicting trades back to maybe get more, or trades up to get a higher quality. They needed the 11 picks they had. They were really happy with the quality of talent that they were able to get. And what John Lynch did say is, I said at the beginning of the draft, there's a lot of depth in this class, and they found those quality players well into day 3, and that is why they chose to keep those late 7th round draft picks, because those were guys that they were interested in.
Yeah, and Jesus, Which picks are getting the most buzz in your coverage on ESP channels? And what are your final thoughts on this year's draft class?
Definitely, like a guy like Alfred Collins. I saw that a lot of people like him. Even our first rounder, Mykel Williams. Like I noticed that that people are really liking like that. This draft has Robert Sala's input all over it, and people are noticing that because when this thing started, we really when you look at the 49ers roster before the draft, obviously we have a Nick Bosa, we have a Fred Warner and Diamador Lenore, but and that's great. That's great to start with. But on the offensive side of the ball is where the majority of the stars are. The Kittles, the Trent Williams, all those guys. So obviously we needed some people in the offensive line, and we did get an offensive lineman. But in general, you needed more people in the defensive line. So I think people love a lot of those picks, the Alfred Collins, the CJ West. So I saw a lot of positive reactions, and in general, I think they're really good players that have a really good chance to be starters for the 49ers immediately because they fit perfectly what the 49ers do.
Awesome. Well, to close us out on today's podcast, I've got a few fun questions to wrap it up. First off, an easy one. Who are you most excited to see in action this upcoming year?
I want to say cornerback Upton Stout. I think just the energy, and if you go watch either his press availability or the one-on-one Zoom interview that I did with him, bouncing off the wall in the best way possible. Also, the most energetic draft call with John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, and CEO Jed York. So I think being able to see that energy translate onto the field, I'm super excited, and he was so stoked to become a Niner this weekend.
Yeah, I'd have to say defensive lineman Alfred Collins is maybe one of my favorites to see in this upcoming year. I love the energy he gave you in that Zoom call, talking about his versatility and also that dominance he brings up to the D-line and that energy that he works with. I'm really excited to see that in action. Jesus, who's your favorite pick this year?
I was gonna say Mykel Williams, but that's a pretty obvious one because he's the first. Everybody's pretty excited about him. So I'm gonna go with Nick Martin. Nick Martin, I really like him as a linebacker. I think he's really fast. He's gonna help the 49ers a lot in stopping the running game. And if you look at it, all these guys, all these defenders, the 49ers acquire in this draft, they're really good against the run. So I think now the 49ers defense in general, with guys like Nick Martin, are gonna be really, really good against the run.
And if the faithful were staying tuned to social media, specifically X, you would have gotten a few hints from our CEO and owner, Jed York. Right before the 49ers made their pick and they were on the clock, he dropped a few little tweets and X posts giving fans a little hint on what the 49ers might do. Lindsey, do you happen to have a favorite on the list?
So I can't say it verbatim, but I do believe it was right before the 5th pick. And he was like, let's do something different. Never mind Robert Saleh. Just walk back in the room.
Yeah, I like that
and then
one.
that's when the 49ers took their 5th straight defensive pick, which I believe was CJ West. I'm kind of getting all of the picks mixed up at this point, but that was my favorite by far.
Yeah, Jesus, what do you think?
I like the one of Frank Gore when we were gonna choose the running back Jordan James.
Yeah,
and he tweeted something like, "If a future Hall of Famer approves it, then that's gotta be the pick." Something I don't remember the exact quote, but I like that one, the one of Frank
I like
Gore.
how he gives you some insight into what's happening in the war room. That's pretty cool. I think my favorite, because this was a really long day on day 3, he said, "Speed this up. Hashtag let's do it." Let's wrap this thing up. Awesome. So I also want to know, what was your guys' favorite pick announcement? We had a few different celebrities and extra special fans go up and make some picks. Do you have a favorite that stands out to you?
I do like the incorporation of international sites, and the 49ers were fortunate to be able to announce a pick in Monterrey, Mexico. And we had Alfredo Gutierrez and Patrick Willis. I think Patrick Willis is a lot of people's fan favorites, Hall of Fame linebacker. So I really like that announcement.
Yeah, Jesus, is there any special moment that stood out to you on the draft coverage?
Yeah, I was gonna go with that one, the one Lindsey mentioned.
Sorry,
but
I stole it from you.
No worries. I also like a lot the one Julian Peterson gave, especially because Julian Peterson brought a lot of memories of like my teenage years, like middle school years, because I watched him as a player growing up, and he was really good for the 49ers. So yeah, I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, my favorite was our 49ers International Fan of the Year, Hugh Davies. He made a pick on day 3 of the draft live in Green Bay. I got to talk to Hugh right after he made the pick. Take a look. Hugh, you just announced a pick live from the 2025 NFL Draft in Green Bay. What was that experience like standing on stage and representing the 49ers?
It was amazing. It was a dream come true. It was like a surreal experience. The crowd was phenomenal. They went on forever, all the way back to Lambeau Field. And it was a real proud moment for a team that I've supported for 30-something years. And yeah, to add another member of the team to the 49ers was, a dream come true.
Amazing. Yeah, you picked wide receiver Jordan Watkins. How cool was it to call his name out and officially welcome a new player to the team?
It was something that I never thought would happen in my lifetime. But now I have a connection to Jordan, and I'm going to follow his career, and hopefully he's the next Debo, and hopefully he has a very long, successful career.
Yeah, I love it. I want to rewind just a bit and just congratulate you for being the 49ers International Fan of the Year. What's it like to represent the faithful? Tell us a little bit about your journey becoming a Niners fan all the way in Australia.
I became a Niners fan when my dad brought me a hat back from America on a work trip. And I was just a little kid, about 10 years old. And from then on, I sort of followed the 49ers, and they grew to be my favourite team. And I've been a passionate 49ers fan for well over 30 years now. And we get up very early on a Monday morning to watch the games live, because it's quite early. And Monday morning in Australia is Sunday in the States. So it's a passion that comes with a fair bit of
like determination, perhaps.
Yes, determination. Getting up that early and starting off the week like that. But it is a highlight of starting off the week for me. To be as I've grown, and I've watched from Joe Montana to Steve Young and Jerry Rice, and through the ups and downs of the 49ers, and now with the Brock Purdy era, it's something that I'm really excited about. And when I got picked to be the International Fan of the Year for the 49ers, it was something I could have never, ever dreamed of. And it was a dream come true. And it's got me closer to the 49ers than I ever thought possible.
Well, the faithful are family. Hugh, thank you so much for representing the faithful, and go Niners.
Thank you.
That'll do it for today, faithful. Thank you so much for following all of our draft coverage on 49ers.com. Make sure to stay tuned for any off-season coverage by subscribing to First and 10 presented by Cisco on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. We'll see you there.